Rev up your engines. All right, even Lexuses can have problems once in a while. This particular one has 215,877 miles on it, and they said they hear a noise in the back when they're braking, so here we go. Well, I don't hear anything, except stuff rattling inside the car. I really don't hear much, to tell you the truth. I'll roll the window up, take it for a little more spin with the window rolled up. Truthfully, it just sounds totally normal to me. I don't hear anything weird. No, it has been raining, so, you know, stuff gets wet, it might quiet down. No sounds other than the crap rattling around inside the car, so we'll have to take the wheel off and look. Now, I realize one thing about modern cars, like this nice SUV, is they don't have any grease fittings or anything on them. So a lot of times they'll make a little creaky noise that mean nothing, but I'm going to show you how to check out stuff by jacking it up. It's cold outside, so not want to get my hands dirty. Keeps them a little bit warm. We'll jack it up. I'll roll it in. Got two little marks here for the jack. I will put it right there and jack it up. Now this is an all-wheel drive vehicle, so it makes things a little more complex because it's also got a drive shaft and a differential that can add to the noise. There's these stupid anti-theft locks. Now we gotta find that. Let's hope it's easy to find in a trunk. Well, here's where it's supposed to be, but it's not there. What do we have when we look in here? There's the hole for it. But there's nothing in there. Isn't that typical? For everyone out there, if you got those stupid lockers on your car, nobody's stealing these tires anymore. But if you do, tell your mechanic where it is. And if you don't know where it is, guess what? You're going to be in a big pickle if you get a flat tire and you can't change your tire. There's a spare in here, but if you can't get that tire off because of those lockers, good luck. Put it in the trunk where it belongs, in that little part, or get a little package, put it next to the spare tire. Somebody didn't put it back. All right, I found it in the center console. Now we can take them off. Please, tell your mechanic where it is. If you don't know where it is, find it. Because if you don't have one, you'll be stuck in the middle of nowhere with a flat tire. They're kind of dumb anyways. Nobody steals these things anymore. Anybody who wants to steal them, they got kits that fit right over those and twirl them off with reverse thread, so you're not stopping any real thieves. We'll stick a jack stand under here and pull the wheel off. Take the stupid lock one off first. Off it comes. Sometimes they stick a little. All kinds of things in here that can make noise. So, you can see, it's an old vehicle, it's got a little surface rust, it's still solid, but there's a lot of things that can make noise. So the first thing we're going to check is the brake pads. Now the brake pads are thick as can be. There's nothing wrong with them. You can see, look how thick they are. There's nothing wrong with them. They look almost new. They're almost perfectly as thick as they come when they're brand new. And I notice on the rotor here, there's an edge here. It's got rust on it. And that's probably where the noise is coming from. You can see the rotor itself is all rusted and corroded, right? Now, if you're fanatic about noise, replace this, right? If you aren't, it isn't going to hurt anything at all. See here, if you look closer, I'll put a flashlight on, you can see bare metal here, but not down here. Because this rubber seal up here is a little bit worn. Now you might be getting some noise in that, so we'll take this off. We'll just loosen this up here. We'll slide it back a little. And we'll pull the pin out so we can lubricate it. Kind of dry. This braking caliper grease works great. You can just stick it in there. Get it nice and lubricated. Then when you push it back in, it won't stick. You don't want it sticking. The rip boot probably let the grease come out. Now with all the new grease, it's perfectly fine. The rest of the boot's still there. You can see it has a rather tricky suspension system here. That's how they ride so well, right? But there's no grease fittings on anything, so any of these little parts here can creak. These bushings can get a little bit worn. That I wouldn't worry about it at all. And the drive shaft could go bad if the drive shaft boot ripped, but it's not ripped. It's totally solid. Everything on there is tightened with the superficial rust and stuff that it has. Yeah. There's nothing structurally wrong with the car, but with all these trick parts, any of them could make a little noise when you brake hard. There's nothing here broken that you really need to replace. And that was the only thing I could see bare shiny metal. Everything else is totally normal. Now, if you're an absolute fanatic about noise, I would say change these rotors out because they have that rusty edge, and when you hit the brakes, it'll hit the rusty edge. But it isn't going to hurt anything. They're totally thick, right? And they're pretty expensive on the these Lexuses, so I would just leave this well enough alone. The pads are super thick, they're gonna last a long time, so they make a little noise. And of course, they didn't even do it for me yet because it was raining outside earlier and everything's wet. Breaks off and the water will quiet them down, the lubricant, so they won't make the squealy noise. Well, now that I got the wheel back on, guess what? I'm putting this locker back where it belongs, right here with the toolkit. Now mechanics can find it when they need to. I'll start her up, take it for a serious road test. Big old backup camera, even though it's an older car. I don't hear wheel bearings, I don't hear anything. Now we'll hit the brakes. The only thing I hear is just a tiny bit of scraping in the rear brakes, and like I said, that's because somebody did a brake job. They didn't replace the rotors. Now, they work perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but it'll make noise because there's that ridge of rust, and it will grab on that. And the reason that's there is because the brake pads don't fit perfectly over the rotors, and they leave that little ridge. Toyotas and Lexuses didn't used to be that way. They used to cover them, but now the Lexuses, a lot of them are more like the Mercedes, where they deliberately make it so the brake pads don't cover the whole rotor. So as the rotor wears, it leaves an outer groove, and then the outer groove makes a noise when you put new brake pads on, and then people complain, so they sell more rotors that way. But look, we stopped fast. It's a barely noticeable little drag strip, and see what's left of this thing. Hey, feels pretty good to me. Still sounds good, shifts good. We'll come to our little drag strip here. We'll come to a stop. And there's nobody behind us, so here we go. That engine sounds strong. Smooth tranny. If you would have blindfolded me and somebody else was driving a car, I'd have no idea this thing has 215,000 miles on it. And as soon as this car passes us, I'll hit the brakes hard to see if they make any noise at high speed. Nothing at all there. Now in these cases, you'll often get the noise the worst first thing in the morning because it's bare steel. It rusts because Earth's atmosphere has gases with a lot of water vapor in them. The water vapor rusts the rotors. First thing in the morning, they're rusted. You back up, you take off. It will make more noise as it rubs the little pieces of rust off. No big deal. This car's structurally strong. There's nothing back there that's wrong. Man, if you're a fanatic, you want to spring for brand new expensive rotors, go ahead. It won't break any better than it's breaking now. It just won't make that little noise. Now, one thing this experience has taught me is this is the problem with Lexuses. They're so well made and they're so quiet that even though this thing's got 215,000 miles on it, it's relatively quiet as can be still, so you're gonna hear little noises like that, right? If this was a Ford, it'd be making so many creaking noises, rattling noises, shaking, you wouldn't notice a little noise like that. But these things are so quiet that some tiny little thing like that, you're gonna hear and it's probably gonna bother you. I gotta say, since I lubricated, I don't hear it at all, but I've been driving it too, so I mean, if it sits first thing in the morning after a rainstorm, you'll probably hear some rust noise rubbing off while you go, but that's perfectly normal on a car that's this old. And that noise is just stuff rattling around. There's a lot of stuff in this car rattling around. Over 200,000 miles on it, still runs like a clock. And that little bit of noise, odds are it's mainly just a rusty brake rotor. There's nothing structurally wrong. I mean, this is why I always ask my customers, what's your perspective on noise? Do you want a totally silent car when you brake? And if they say yes, I say, well, I'm going to buy Akebono brake pads and I'm going to buy brand new rotors and you won't get any noise. Because you put new brake pads on old rotors, especially when they got that little ridge all the way around the edge, it's rusty, it's gonna make noise. Now, it means nothing. On my own cars, I don't give a crap. I just change the brake pads. I use Akebono pads because they're good pads, right? The only time I change the rotors are when they're warped. So when you hit the brakes going 60 and the steering wheel starts shaking, or if it's the back rotors that are warped, you hit the brakes and the brake pedal kind of pulsates. That means the back rotors are warped. Then I change the rotors. In the case of this, Hey, I didn't do the brake job. If I had, I would have explained it up front, and then they get to decide, because it's their car and you want to explain things honestly to people. They want to save money, they don't care about noise, big deal. It's not warped, it's not shaking, use the rotors over. But if you really don't like noise, you got that little bit of rust on it, change the rotors. And don't turn them, because modern rotors are made out of cheaper steel and they're thin. Once you turn them, they will warp and rust even faster. Not like the old days where they were super thick, you could turn them 3 or 4 times. No, if you don't like the noise, replace the rotors. There's plenty of aftermarket companies that make them at a decent price. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.